Documentary produced by the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Finance and the Social Security back in 2019. That documentary titled From Mistake to Miracle. You would have appreciated from the get-go the offer laid the foundation that St. Lucia was not the initial destination, the initial home for the hospital. It was initially a mistake, which turned into a miracle. 13 years after, you wonder, after the fire, you wonder, was it really meant originally to remain as a mistake? We've made so many mistakes in this tug of war, this political tug of war. 13 years now, mistake upon mistake, starting with the former Prime Minister King, who denied a offer by the Taiwanese government to rebuild the surgical ward of the St. Jude Hospital. We're focusing today on the history and the legacy of this great institution, St. Jude, and rejoining me now live on the video feed, Mr. Pius Benjamin. We have you back, Mr. Benjamin. Thanks for reconnecting. He served for many years, so we can just reconnect with him. You were telling us, Mr. Benjamin, about your years of service and the good memories that you have serving at St. Jude.
Okay, good. But what I'm saying, I knew St. Jude from 1966, right? But I will be talking about my inception as a work at St. Jude. We started in 1993.
Just watch your phone in. Pay attention to your phone and not your television screen. If you can also turn down the volume on your television for me as well, that'd be appreciated. You were telling me earlier, Mr. Benjamin, that you're a baby of St. Jude, a St. Jude baby, really.
No, it's just that my mom was one of the first 11 nurses that started at St. Jude. At St. Jude Hospital, so I knew this place in 1966.
Okay.
Yes. About that baby business. Boy.
Okay, and Mr. Benjamin, again, just lower the volume on your TV for me, please. It's causing an awful feedback, and then we'll continue our discourse here. 9 minutes before 8 o'clock, we're just waiting for Mr. Pius Benjamin to just lower the volume on his television. He's monitoring the broadcast as well as with many of you. I think he has done so. Yes. So, Mr. Benjamin, we can come back to you. No, we're still getting an awful. We're still getting an awful feedback, Mr. Benjamin. If you can hear me, please just lower the volume on your video on your television extremely low, please.
I hear you, you know. I may have to probably stick a headphone into this thing. I can barely hear you.
I'll increase my volume as well. We did flag that you should have prepared with a headphone. I think you've lowered the volume on your TV, have you?
Yeah, the volume is lowered.
Right. So tell us about your years of service and the good old days serving at the St. Jude's Hospital.
Well, in short, I started working at St. Jude as a people technician, and later on in life, I started in the EMS system. I went to study emergency medical services in Iowa, and I came back as a paramedic and EMS instructor. And that was it. That was in 2001. Okay, and then I became the disaster coordinator at St. Jude, and that's about it.
Okay, we're just still having a little challenge, Mr. Benjamin, with your framing. So if you can just monitor the screen of your phone, we want you center of the screen, so that we can give our viewers an appreciation of the man behind the voice, the face behind the voice. I think that is a lot better now, my technicians. A lot better now.
You want to center.
Yeah, you're perfect right there. So if we can keep it right there, we can continue.
When it's there, I can hardly hear you, so you have to speak louder.
No problem, I will do so. So, tell us, what do you think was so special about the St. Jude Hospital as a medical institution?
Well, St. Jude, we had programs at St. Jude that probably Victoria Hospital didn't have at the time because of the volunteer service that we had at St. Jude at the time. Because we used to have all these specialist doctors coming from the United States. You know, some probably would come for 6 months, some would come for a month, some would probably come for 2 years, whatever. But we had the services of the volunteers. And more so, what happened? The volunteers brought supplies, right, for St. Jude. And then St. Jude was being operated by the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother. And they were getting a lot of donations from the United States. So we find that St. Jude was well sustained in terms of medical equipment and medical supplies. Okay?
The service also stood out in those days as well, because you had people traveling as far from Castries to get service at St. Jude. They would have bypassed Victoria and come all the way to Vieux-Fort to get to St. Jude.
Oh yes, I mean, we had this reputation of care, quality care, right, which was instilled in the staff, at that time the staff before me, right, by the Sisters of the, I mean, they were trained by the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother, and their philosophy was to take care of people, to give people quality care. And probably this is the thing that has been ruined right now, but this is why we had this reputation. That's why people left Castries and all parts of St. Lucia and came to the hospital.
Absolutely. Now, just walk us through your years as an operating room technician, Mr. Benjamin, and then your 17 years as a paramedic. Walk us through those years.
Repeat,
I was asking you to walk us through your years as an operating room technician and the 17 years that you served as a paramedic. Just walk us through what was it like working those years, and what was the daily operations like for you?
Well, my interest in being an operating room technician, I've always liked the human anatomy, and when I went into the operating room, that was a perfect opportunity for me to learn even more. And the operating room is a place where you have discipline, right, in many aspects of your life, right? You have to be confidential, you know, it's just that you have to be that kind of person whose mind is always present and not absent. As a paramedic, call it that, or EMS personnel, it's almost the same thing, right? You have to keep thinking. You have to be thinking ahead of things, right? Unlike some people who probably will say, oh no, well, you don't really have to be thinking ahead. But these professions, you have to have that brain of yours screwed properly in your head. Call it that.
Absolutely. And your experience on September 9th, 2009, your role as the lead person responsible for disaster management. What was it like on that night?
Well, that was one of the saddest nights of my life, I would tell you, because when I was called to the hospital, I didn't want to believe that the hospital was on fire. Because we worked at St. Jude Hospital. I kept on saying that one time. Let us start thinking forward in the event something happens. Let us have memorandum of understanding with schools or stuff like that. So if something happens, we have a place to go. However, I must commend the staff that night, the doctors, the nurses, and all the staff members who worked that night, because the response to this disaster, right, it was well coordinated in a way that some people even said to me, did we practice this thing? But we didn't practice anything. Is that we had disaster drills before that, so the staff members actually knew what to do. And to tell you the honest truth, the doctors and nurses, they worked diligently that night. They worked like, you know, it is something that I will never forget in my life, because to the point that we had 2 people that were born at the secondary school that very same night, right? And after that, we were able to set up an emergency room at the stadium that the day after, which means that it was by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, we had an emergency room up and running.
Right.
So you have to give credit. You have to give credit to the staff at St. Jude, and this is not. That's what you're not hearing right. You know, you have all the saga of hospitals being built and all this kind of thing, but you know, let's go back. Let's go back to the day St. Jude got built, right? What I saw Big Men cry. I'll never forget that day when there was a nurse called Miss Sheriana. She came to me and she said, Pius, we have a woman in labor and we need to get packs, right, in that building hospital. And in truth and in fact, we did get the packs, but then we had to find a way of getting into the secondary school. And guess who I saw crying behind my back? The late Aston James. He was a minister. He was a minister of education. Right? So by the time I was thinking of how to get into St. Lucia Hospital, right, he had already called the principal and said, open the school for us, right, so that we could get in there and this baby could be born. You know, so there are a lot of miracles that performed that night. You know.
Yeah, a lot of miracles on that day. Just entertain me for a bit. I want to talk about the miracles because immediately after the fire, the staff gave, St. Jude Hospital was the home for 2 newborn babies. But before that, Mr. Benjamin, you and the staff, you saw patients who you had cared for days perish in the fire. You saw people die. That must have been heart-wrenching.
Again, you keep breaking up, right? I can't really hear.
I was saying on the night of the 9th of September, you actually, along with the staff, you saw people die and perish in the fire. That must have been really sad and heart-wrenching.
Well, to tell you the honest truth, I don't think that could have been prevented. Because when I got to building, where the fire was raging, right, everybody was thinking of their own lives. Well, I mean, people who were on that floor were thinking of the lives of the patients, the lives of themselves as well. And unfortunately, these patients perished, I understood. These patients were unresponsive on their bed and couldn't move, to the point that firemen risked their lives to try and save these people. You know, and that we have to commend fire service personnel for. Yeah. Because one guy even got burned, one fireman got burned that night, right, trying to see the patient. But the fire was so intense, that's why the patients could not be saved.
Yeah, I understand that, but just seeing your patients perish and learning of patients perishing in that fire was an extremely sad period for you all down at St. Jude.
Oh yeah, that was sad because I couldn't imagine that the fire when I got there it for me that these patients were in there. As I kept on saying, could something have been done? What could be done, you know, to get them out? But couldn't. We really couldn't. But it was a sad day for right, for everybody. Especially I saw doctors cry, I saw nurses cry. Right? I saw so many people crying because of that people burnt in the fire.
Yeah. Let's talk about a little more joyous time. A few hours after the fire, 2 babies were given birth to. 2 babies were born. That lightened up the spirits at St. Jude's for a little while, didn't it?
Once again, I can't.
The birth of the two babies immediately after the fire. I'm saying that must have lightened up your spirits for a little bit at St. Jude's.
Jesus Christ.
We're absolutely having some challenges with Miss. We're absolutely having some challenges with Mr. Pius Benjamin, having some audio challenges with Mr. Benjamin. We did alert him, as we alert all of our guests, that they should, once they get onto the platform, utilize an earpiece. He didn't follow these instructions. We experiencing some technical challenges with him hearing us. However, it's live television and these things do happen even at the CNN. So we are experiencing some challenges with Mr. Benjamin. I'll let him go now and see how we can connect with our next guest. We focusing in the main this morning on the St. Jude's Hospital. The next guest has a very interesting perspective to share as well. So stay with us. We'll take a very short commercial break. Good morning, St. Lucia is brought to you with the kind compliments of the Banker of St. Lucia, Flow, Tropical Solar, and Sol Petroleum. Mr. Benjamin, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
You can hear me now. So I can continue the discussion. Following the fire, it was sad during the fire, but the birth of the two babies a few hours after would have lightened up your spirits a bit.
Okay. With the babies, we had no choice. The babies had to be delivered because the moms were in labor. Right? I hope I am on the right course with you. Right? They had to be delivered, so something had to be done. And I mean, the training of the nurses and doctors was such that, listen, hey, when you are a nurse or a doctor, that you have to learn to do things in an emergent situation. So once we had what we needed, right, the nurses went on and delivered the patient. Mm-hmm. But afterwards, the patients had to be transferred to gas space, and the fire service played their role in doing that transportation. But it was managed in a way that, I mean, it was expected, right, by the nurses and doctors that, hey, once the patients were delivered and they were delivered successfully, right, that all what they had to do was just transfer the mom, and that's what happened. Mm-hmm.
And that was done successfully. Mr. Benjamin, I'd love to keep you longer, but we still have some challenges, so I'll let you go and then we'll reconnect another time. But thank you for coming on this morning.
Okay, good. You're welcome, because I could hardly hear you.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks for your contribution, Mr. Pius Benjamin. Worked for 17 years as a paramedic, and he served for many years within the operating theatre, the operating room at the St. Jude Hospital, speaking to us here about his years of service on this, the anniversary since the fire, the 13th anniversary since that 999 fire 13 years ago on September 9th, 2009. We'll take a short commercial break. 7 minutes now after 8 o'clock. We conclude on top the hour of 8. My next guest is already standing by. Sort of important to cut Mr. Benjamin's interview short, so much more that he can share with us, but to preserve the quality and standard that we set out here on the platform, it was the best thing to let him go. 7 minutes now past 8 o'clock. Stay with us. We'll continue our